Billionaire follows his secretary at night after noticing missing documents and discovers. Richard Anderson had felt something was off in his office these past few days. Important documents related to adoption cases kept disappearing from his desk, always at night, and only one person had full access to his private office. The discovery unsettled him when he realized the missing papers were precisely those tied to the adoption of an orphaned child in New York. Margaret Wilson, his secretary of 15 years, was the only person he trusted completely. She organized his life, knew all his business secrets, and had always shown absolute loyalty. That Tuesday, Richard decided to hide in the company parking lot after hours. Margaret left promptly at 6 in the evening, as she always did, carrying her black leather purse and a folder he'd never noticed before. The businessman followed her in his car through the busy streets of New York, keeping a safe distance. The journey took nearly an hour. Margaret took the subway to the east side, then switched between two different buses. Richard never imagined his secretary lived so far from the city center. He'd always offered her transportation help, but she politely declined, saying she preferred public transit. When Margaret finally stopped in front of a simple 3-story building in Astoria, Richard parked across the street. The neighborhood was modest, with small houses and dimly lit streets. He watched Margaret climb the outdoor stairs to the second floor, where a light flicked on as soon as she arrived. After a few minutes, Richard saw a small silhouette running toward the window. A child. His heart raced when he heard a young voice shouting through the open window. "Grandma's home! Grandma's home!" Richard felt as if the world had stopped. Margaret had never mentioned having grandchildren. In 15 years of working together, she'd always said she was single and had no close family. How could that child be calling her grandma? He sat in his car for another 20 minutes, trying to process what he'd seen. Through the lit window, he could see shadows moving. It looked like a normal domestic scene, a grandmother coming home to an eager child. Richard was about to leave when he saw Margaret step onto the balcony. She looked straight at his car. Even in the dim light of the poorly lit street, he was certain she'd spotted him. Margaret slowly descended the stairs and walked toward the car. "Mr. Anderson," she said as he rolled down the window, "are you following me?" Margaret's voice was different, no longer the efficient, respectful secretary he knew. There was something maternal, protective, almost defiant in her tone. "Margaret, Richard stammered. "Documents have been disappearing from my office." "I know," she replied simply. "Come inside. I need to explain everything to you." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing. Richard hesitated. Getting out of the car and entering his secretary's building didn't seem wise. But the urgency in Margaret's voice and his need to understand what was happening outweighed his doubts. He followed her up the stairs. The hallway was clean but worn with time. The smell of home-cooked food drifted from several doors, mingling with the sounds of TVs and family chatter. Margaret opened the apartment door, and Richard was met with a small but cozy space. A simple living room with a floral sofa, an old television, and several photographs on the walls. What caught his attention most was the child sitting on the couch. She was a girl of about 7 years old, with curly brown hair and big, bright eyes. She wore pink pajamas with unicorn prints and held a coloring book. "Who is he, Grandma?" the girl asked, looking at Richard with curiosity. "He's my boss, sweetheart, Mr. Anderson," Margaret replied, running her hand through the child's hair. "Lily, go brush your teeth. It's time for bed." "But Grandma, you just got here," Lily protested. "I'll read you a story in a little while. Go on now, dear." The girl obeyed, but not without giving Richard another curious glance. When she left the room, silence settled between the two adults. "Margaret, I don't understand," Richard finally said, sitting in the armchair she offered. "In 15 years, you never mentioned having a family." "Because family can be complicated sometimes, Mr. Anderson," Margaret answered, pouring coffee into small porcelain cups. "And because some truths are too painful to share." Richard looked at the photographs on the wall while waiting for a clearer explanation. There were pictures of Lily at various ages, from a baby to now. In some, she appeared with a young woman who looked a lot like Margaret, but whom he didn't recognize. "That's my daughter," Margaret said, noticing Richard's gaze. Was Amanda. She isn't with us anymore. The businessman felt a tightness in his chest. I'm so sorry, Margaret, I didn't know. Amanda was a dreamer, Margaret continued, sitting on the couch where Lily had been earlier. Smart, kind, full of plans for the future. She got pregnant very young, at 19. Richard picked up his coffee cup, sensing he was about to hear something that would change his perception of his secretary forever. Lily's father was a boy from a wealthy family, Margaret said, looking directly at him. A spoiled kid who promised to marry her, but when he found out about the pregnancy, he disappeared. His family wanted nothing to do with an unwanted granddaughter from a poor woman. Margaret, why are you telling me this? Richard asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. Because the wealthy family was yours, Mr. Anderson. The coffee slipped from Richard's hand, spilling onto the floor. What did you say? Your son Edward got my daughter Amanda pregnant 8 years ago. When she told him about the pregnancy, he said his parents would never accept it, that it was better for her to handle the situation alone. Richard felt the blood drain from his face. Edward, his only son, whom he had raised with such love after his wife's death. Edward, who had been living abroad for 5 years, supposedly building his own career. That's impossible, Richard murmured. Edward never mentioned any Amanda to me. Of course he didn't, Margaret said, standing up to grab a cloth and wipe the spilled coffee. Do you think he'd tell his billionaire father he got the daughter of a maid pregnant? A maid? Before working for you, I worked for the Miller family, your neighbors in the Upper East Side. That's where Amanda met Edward, at a party he went to with his friends. Richard felt as if he were living a nightmare. The pieces were falling into place in a way he didn't want to accept. Margaret, even if this is true, why didn't you ever tell me? Why did you work for me all these years knowing this? Margaret stopped cleaning the floor and looked at him with an expression that mixed pain and determination. Because I needed the job. Amanda got sick after giving birth and needed expensive treatment. When I heard you were hiring a secretary, I thought maybe by working close to you, I could understand what kind of man raised a son capable of abandoning a pregnant woman. And what did you find out? Richard asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. I found out you're a good man, Mr. Anderson. Fair with your employees, generous with social causes, present in the lives of those who work with you. That confused me even more. Lily appeared in the doorway, already in her pajamas with her teeth brushed. Grandma, will you read me a story? Of course, sweetheart. Pick a book. Richard watched the interaction between the two. There was so much affection, so much closeness. Lily came running back with a book of fairy tales. Can it be Beauty and the Beast? She asked, climbing onto Margaret's lap. That one again? Aren't you tired of that story? No, it's the best one. The monster turns into a prince at the end. Richard felt a lump in his throat. There was something about the child's innocence that moved him deeply. When Lily smiled at him, he saw something familiar in those brown eyes. Lily, how old are you? He asked softly. 7. I'll be 8 next month, she replied excitedly. Grandma said she'll throw a party with a chocolate cake. Do you like school? I do. I'm the best in my class at math. My teacher says I'm really smart. Margaret hugged her granddaughter tighter. Lily really is very bright. She picks things up so quickly. Just like my daddy, Lily said proudly. Grandma said he was really smart too. Your daddy? Richard asked, his heart racing. I never met him, but Grandma has pictures. Want to see? Before Margaret could stop her, Lily ran to her room and came back with a small shoebox. She pulled out several photographs and handed them to Richard. The first photo showed a young Edward, around 20 years old, hugging a pretty brunette girl. Both were smiling at the camera, looking happy. Richard immediately recognized his son's face, though he was thinner and had longer hair than he remembered. That's my daddy, Lily said, pointing at Edward. And that's my mommy. Grandma said they really loved each other. Richard looked through the other photos, Edward and Amanda in a park, at a mall, at a party. They seemed genuinely happy together. Why didn't they stay together? He asked, turning to Margaret. Tell him the truth, Grandma, Lily said innocently. Daddy was scared of his parents. Margaret took a deep breath. Lily, go to bed. You have school tomorrow. But I want to hear the story. Tomorrow I'll read you 2 stories. Now go to sleep. Lily kissed her grandmother and waved shyly at Richard before heading to her room. When they were alone again, Richard held the photographs with trembling hands. Margaret, if Edward is really Lily's father, where is he now? I don't know, Mr. Anderson. After we lost Amanda, I tried to reach him many times. I sent letters to the address Amanda had. I called companies where I knew you had connections. I never managed to speak to him. Amanda, how did she... Richard couldn't finish the question. Postpartum complications, Margaret said, wiping a tear. She had eclampsia. She was hospitalized for weeks. When she finally came home, she was very weak. Lily was 4 months old when we lost Amanda. Richard felt a heavy weight in his chest. Why didn't you come to me? I could have helped with the medical costs with... And say what? That your son had a daughter he abandoned? That my daughter was struggling because of his family? You didn't know me back then. I was just another woman in need. But later, when you started working with me, by then, I was already raising Lily on my own. And I'll admit, at first, I wanted revenge in some way. I wanted you to know what kind of son you'd raised. And why didn't you? Margaret stood up and went to the window, looking out at the dark street. Because I met you, Mr. Anderson. I saw how you treat people, how you care about your employees. I saw you cry when Mrs. Jenkins from cleaning lost her husband. I saw you pay for the hospital bills for Mr. Joseph's daughter at the front desk. I saw you being human. And did that change anything? It changed everything. I realized maybe Edward hadn't told you the truth, that maybe you didn't know you had a granddaughter who needed you. Richard looked back at the photographs. There was one where Edward was holding a tiny baby. On the back, someone had written, Edward meets Lily, 2 months old. Did he ever get to know his daughter? Amanda got his address when Lily was born. He came to visit them a few times in secret. But after Amanda got sick, he disappeared for good. Amanda died believing he'd come back. Silence filled the room. Richard could hear the sounds of the night, cars passing on the street, neighbors' televisions, the distant sound of music. The missing documents, he finally said. They're about Lily's adoption, Margaret confirmed. Child Protective Services wants her to be adopted by a stable family. My salary isn't enough to prove I can give her everything she needs. Are you forging my signature on the documents? Margaret lowered her head. I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, I know it's wrong. But I can't lose Lily. She's all I have left of Amanda. What kind of family wants to adopt her? A family of business people from Washington, D.C. They have a lot of money, a big house, can give her expensive schooling, things I can't provide. But you're her grandmother. Doesn't that count? It does, but they question if I can give her the future she deserves. And they're right, Mr. Anderson. Look at this place. Lily shares a room with me, goes to public school, has no private health insurance. Margaret, why didn't you ask me for help? How? Hello, Mr. Anderson, can you help me raise the daughter your son abandoned? Wouldn't that sound like blackmail to you? Richard stood up and began pacing the small room. The walls were covered in drawings Lily had made, houses with chimneys, stick-figure families, colorful rainbows. In one drawing, a little girl was holding hands with an older woman and a man in a suit. Who's this man in the drawing? He asked. Her dream grandpa, Margaret said with a sad smile. Lily always asks about her paternal grandfather. I tell her stories about a kind, loving man who might come meet her one day. And you never told her that man was me? I never gave a name. Just said he exists and maybe she'd meet him someday. Richard picked up more drawings. In every one there was a father or grandfather figure. Lily clearly longed for a complete family. Margaret, Edward, do you have his current address? No, Mr. Anderson. The last I heard, he was living in England working at a tech company. That was 3 years ago. And you tried reaching out to me before then. I thought about telling you many times, but whenever I was about to speak, I remembered you're Edward's father. that you might defend your son, that you might think I'm making it all up for money. Richard sat down again, feeling the weight of the situation. Margaret, I need to ask a hard question. Are you absolutely sure Edward is Lily's father? I am, she answered without hesitation. Amanda never lied to me. And if you look closely at Lily, you'll see she has his eyes, the same way she tilts her head when she's thinking, the same smile. She never had a DNA test. Amanda wanted to, but we couldn't afford it. And after she passed, I didn't want to stir things up. Lily was so young, traumatized by losing her mother. I didn't want to cause more pain. And now I need proof to stop the forced adoption. If I can prove that Lily has living, present paternal family, maybe the process can be suspended. Richard finally understood Margaret's plan. She was trying to force a situation where he would discover the truth and take responsibility for his granddaughter. That's why you took the documents from my office, to force me to find out everything. Forgive me, Mr. Anderson, but I was desperate. The adoption process is already far along. In 2 weeks, Lily could be taken to Washington, D.C. 2 weeks? The family already has all the paperwork approved. Only the judge's final signature is missing. A noise from Lily's room interrupted the conversation. Margaret quickly got up to check. She returned a few minutes later with a worried expression. She has a fever, Margaret said. It happens sometimes. Lily has a heart condition, a congenital defect that needs constant medical care. What kind of condition? A ventricular septal defect, a small hole in her heart. The doctors say she might need surgery in the future, but for now, it's controlled with medication. Richard felt a pang of concern. Is she getting proper care? I take her to the clinic whenever she needs it, but appointments take months to schedule, and the medication is expensive. Margaret, you should have told me all this sooner. I know that now, Mr. Anderson. But back then I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, afraid you'd try to take Lily from me, afraid I'd lose my job and wouldn't be able to support her. Lily appeared at the bedroom door, her cheeks flushed with fever, clutching a stuffed bear. Grandma, I'm thirsty, she said weakly. Margaret hurried to get water and medicine. Richard watched the girl sit on the couch, clearly unwell. Are you sick, Lily? Sometimes I feel like this, she replied, resting her head on the arm of the couch. Grandma says my heart is special. Special how? It beats differently from other hearts, that's why I need medicine and can't run too much. Margaret returned with a glass of water and a small pill. Here, sweetheart. This will make you feel better. Lily took the medicine obediently and curled up in her grandmother's lap. Grandma, is the man leaving now? Yes, dear. Mr. Anderson needs to go home. Can he come back another day? I like him. Richard's heart clenched. The child's simplicity and innocence moved him deeply. If your grandma allows it, I can come back, he said softly. Good. Can I show you my drawings? Of course, I'd love to see them. Lily smiled despite her fever. I'll draw a special one for you. Margaret rocked her granddaughter until she fell asleep, then carried her to bed and returned to the living room. Mr. Anderson, I understand if you want to fire me. I know I betrayed your trust. Margaret, first I need to understand this whole situation better. Tomorrow I want you to take the day off. But Mr. Anderson, I'm not firing you. I want you to take Lily to a private cardiologist. I'll cover all the tests. And I need to speak with the lawyers about this adoption process. You believe me? I don't know what to believe yet, but a sick child can't wait for me to figure out the truth. No matter who her father is, Lily needs proper medical care. Margaret began to cry. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you. And Margaret, I need you to promise me one thing. Don't take any more documents from my office. If you need something, ask me directly. I promise. Richard headed for the door but stopped before leaving. Margaret, do you have any way to contact Edward? Not directly, but I have the email of a friend of his who still lives in the United States. They talk sometimes. I need the contact. It's time for Edward to know he has a sick daughter who needs him. What if he denies everything? What if he says he's not her father? Then we'll do a DNA test and find out the truth. But regardless of the result, I'll help Lily. No child deserves to go through this alone. When Richard arrived home, his mansion in the Upper East Side felt emptier and colder than ever before. He went up to his private office and picked up the phone. "Hello, Dr. Smith. This is Richard Anderson. I need an urgent appointment with the best pediatric cardiologist in New York. For tomorrow morning? Yes, it's urgent. No, it's not, my child. It's a complicated situation." After the call, Richard stood by the window, gazing at the illuminated city. Somewhere out there, Edward was living his life, perhaps unaware he had a daughter, or maybe he knew and chose to ignore it. He grabbed his phone and began typing a message to the private detective he used for corporate investigations. "I need to locate my son, Edward Anderson. Last known info, England Tech Company, urgent. I'll pay double your usual fee." Richard stayed awake all night, thinking about everything he had discovered. At 6 in the morning, he received a response from the detective confirming the search had begun. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The next morning, Richard cancelled all his meetings and went to pick up Margaret and Lily. The apartment seemed even smaller in daylight, but it was clean and tidy. Lily's fever had improved and she was playing with dolls on the living room floor. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson," she greeted cheerfully. "Grandma said we're going to the doctor." "That's right. We're going to take good care of your special heart." "Will it hurt?" "No, it'll just be some tests to check how everything's doing." At the hospital, Richard noticed how Margaret cared for her granddaughter with complete attention. She knew all the symptoms, exactly what questions to ask the doctor, and had memorized every medication Lily took. Dr. Harold Thompson, the cardiologist, examined Lily carefully. "The girl has a moderate ventricular septal defect," he explained to Richard and Margaret after the tests. "It's a treatable condition, but she'll need constant monitoring and possibly surgery in the next 2 or 3 years." "Is it dangerous?" Margaret asked, holding Lily's hand. "Not with proper treatment. But she'll need regular checkups, echocardiograms every 6 months, and controlled medication. It's also important to avoid excessive physical exertion." "And the cost of treatment?" Richard asked. "Considering appointments, tests, and medication, it'll be around $3,000 a month." Margaret paled. Her salary as a secretary was $2,500. "Doctor, I'll cover all of Lily's medical expenses," Richard said. "I want her to have the best possible treatment." "But Mr. Anderson," Margaret began to protest. "No discussion, Margaret. It's decided." Lily, who was playing with a puzzle in the waiting room, didn't fully understand the adults' conversation, but sensed something important was being decided. On the way back home, she asked, "Grandma, why is Mr. Anderson helping us?" Margaret looked at Richard, who was driving in silence. "Because there are good people in the world, sweetheart, and Mr. Anderson is one of them. Is he like the grandpa from my dreams? Maybe he is, love, maybe he is." That afternoon, Richard received a call from the detective. "Mr. Anderson, I've located your son. Edward is living in London, working for an app development company. I have his full address and contact numbers." "Good. Send all the details to my email." "There's one more thing, sir. I did some additional checking. Edward is going through a divorce. He married an English woman 2 years ago, but the marriage apparently didn't work out." Richard felt a mix of sadness and anger. Edward had gotten married without even telling his father, and all this time he had a daughter in the United States who needed him. At 8 in the evening, Richard called the number the detective had provided. After several rings, a familiar voice answered. "Hello. Edward, it's me, your father." Silence on the other end of the line. "Dad, how did you get my number?" "That doesn't matter now. I need to talk to you about something very serious." "If it's about money, I already told you." "It's not about money, Edward, it's about your daughter." Another silence, even longer this time. "My daughter? Dad, what are you talking about?" "Lily, the daughter you had with Amanda Wilson 7 years ago." How do you know about this? So you admit you have a daughter?" Edward let out a deep sigh. "Dad, it's complicated." "What's complicated, Edward? Taking responsibility? Owning up to your actions?" "You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Explain how my son had a daughter and never told me. Explain how a 7-year-old child is struggling while you're in Europe building your career. Dad, Amanda and I, it was a mistake. We were too young. She said she could handle it on her own. Amanda isn't alive anymore, Edward. Richard heard a muffled sound from the other end. What? What did you say? Amanda passed away when Lily was 4 months old. Postpartum complications. Your daughter is being raised by her maternal grandmother, who's been my secretary for 15 years. My God, Amanda, she's... And your daughter, Edward, your daughter has a heart condition that requires expensive, ongoing treatment. She could lose custody of the child because she can't financially prove she can properly care for her. Edward began to cry on the other end. Dad, I didn't know Amanda had... I tried to stay in touch at first, but then she stopped answering my messages. I thought she had moved on, found someone better. Moved on? Edward, she was raising your daughter alone. She was sick and needed help. I was too young, Dad. I was scared to tell you. Scared of how you'd react. And now? Now you're going to keep running from your responsibilities? No. No, Dad. I want to meet my daughter. I want to help. But I don't know how. By coming back to the United States, owning up to what's yours. But my life here, my job. Edward, your daughter could be adopted by a family in Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks if we don't prove she has family. Do you really think work is more important than that? 2 weeks? Dad, that's impossible. Nothing is impossible when it comes to family, Edward. I'll book your ticket now. You're coming back to the United States to fix this. What if she doesn't want to meet me? What if the grandmother doesn't accept me being there? Edward, Lily draws an imaginary grandfather in all her pictures. She dreams of meeting her father's family. And Margaret, her grandmother, has fought for 15 years to find a way to bring this family together. Margaret? Your secretary? Yes. The woman you ignored when she tried to reach out to you. The woman who raised your daughter alone while you were building your life in Europe. Edward was silent for several minutes. Dad, I messed up, didn't I? Yes, Edward, you did. But there's still time to fix it. Lily needs you. And I need to meet my granddaughter before it's too late. All right, I'll come back. But I need a few days to sort things out here. You have 48 hours. After that, I'm coming to London myself to get you. Dad. Edward, this is your chance to be the man I always hoped you'd be. Don't waste it. Richard hung up the phone and sat in his office for a long time. He was 45 years old, had built a business empire, but felt like a failure as a father. How had he not noticed Edward was going through such a complex situation? Why hadn't he created an environment where his son felt comfortable sharing his problems? The next day, Richard went back to Margaret's apartment. This time, he brought shopping bags. Mr. Anderson, what's all this? Margaret asked, eyeing the multiple bags. Clothes and toys for Lily, and a few things for you too. Mr. Anderson, this isn't necessary. Yes, it is, Margaret. And there's more. I spoke to my lawyers about the adoption process. They're filing a motion to suspend it. Did they succeed? For now, we've bought 2 more weeks. Enough time for Edward to arrive in the United States. Margaret's eyes widened. Edward is coming back. Yes. I spoke to him yesterday. He's coming to settle all this. What if he wants to take Lily away? What if he doesn't let me see my granddaughter? Margaret, you raised this girl alone for 7 years. No one will separate you two. We'll find a way to make this work for everyone. Lily came running from the kitchen where she'd been drawing. Mr. Anderson, she shouted, running to hug him. Look what I drew for you. The picture showed 3 people holding hands, a little girl, an older woman and a man in a suit. Below, in crooked letters, it read, My family. It's beautiful, Lily. Can I take it home? Yes. I made it with lots of love. Richard knelt in front of her. Lily, I need to tell you something important. What? You're going to meet your daddy soon. Lily's eyes widened. My real daddy? Your real daddy? He's coming to the United States just to meet you. When? In a few days. Lily fell quiet for a moment, taking it all in. And will you be my real grandpa too? Richard glanced at Margaret, who was emotional. If you'd like, I'd love to be your grandpa. I do, Lily yelled, jumping into his arms. "I always wanted a grandpa." That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He thought about how his life had completely changed in just a few days. A week ago, he was a successful but lonely businessman. Now he had a 7-year-old granddaughter with heart problems and a complicated family situation to resolve. He called his personal assistant. "Charles, I need you to prepare the guest room at the house and hire a nurse specialized in pediatric cardiology." "By when, Mr. Anderson?" "Tomorrow. Also, research the best private schools in New York with medical support programs." "Any specific age range?" "For a 7-year-old girl. Very bright, but with some physical limitations due to a heart condition." "Understood, sir." The next day, Edward called his father. "Dad, I'm at the airport. My flight leaves in 2 hours." "Great, I'll pick you up." "Dad, what if I don't know how to be her father? What if she doesn't like me?" "Edward, you'll learn, and she'll love meeting you. Lily has a huge heart, just like her mother's." "Did you know Amanda?" "Not personally, but I see a lot of her in Lily, and from how Margaret talks about her, she was a special person." "She was, Dad. Amanda was amazing. I was an idiot to leave her." "You were young, Edward. You made mistakes. Now it's time to fix them." "What if it's too late?" "It's never too late to do the right thing." Richard spent the whole day restless. He organized a meeting with the lawyers, confirmed all of Lily's medical tests, and even bought a special chair so she could sit at his dining table. When it was time to pick Edward up from the airport, Richard felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. He hadn't seen his son in almost a year since his last quick visit to the United States. Edward stepped out of the arrivals area carrying only a small suitcase. He looked thinner with unshaven stubble and tired eyes. "Dad," he said, hugging Richard. "Edward, how was the trip?" "Long. I had a lot of time to think." On the way home, they talked about Lily's situation and the next steps. "Dad, I need to know, are you mad at me?" "I'm disappointed, Edward. I don't understand how you could hide something so important from me. I was afraid of how you'd react. You've always been so upright, so responsible. I thought you'd despise me." "Edward, I may not agree with your choices, but you're my son. Nothing changes that." "So now what? How do we handle Lily?" "First, you'll meet her. Then we'll figure out how to build a family that works for everyone." "What if she doesn't want to stay with me?" "Edward, Lily has dreamed of meeting her father for 7 years. What she wants most in the world is to have a complete family." When they arrived at the mansion, Edward was amazed by the changes Richard had made. The guest room was decorated with child-friendly themes. There were new toys in the living room and a high chair at the dining table. "You did all this for her?" "I did. Lily is my granddaughter, Edward. She'll have everything I couldn't give you when you were little." "Why couldn't you give it to me?" Richard stopped and looked at his son. "Because I was too busy building a company, trying to provide financial security for our family. I forgot you needed my presence more than money." "Dad, that's why I won't make the same mistake with Lily. She'll have money, but she'll also have love and presence." That afternoon, Richard called Margaret. "Margaret, Edward's here. Can we come visit now?" "Mr. Anderson, Lily is very nervous. She hasn't stopped asking about her father all day." "That's normal. Edward's nervous too." "What if it doesn't work out?" "It will, Margaret. It has to." When Richard and Edward arrived at the apartment in Astoria, Lily was hiding behind her grandmother. "Lily, this is your daddy," Margaret said softly. Edward knelt down to her level. "Hi, Lily. I'm Edward. Your dad." Lily studied him for a long time, comparing his face to the photos she'd kept. "You were gone a long time," she finally said. "I was, and Daddy's sorry for that. Mummy was sad because you left." Edward felt his eyes fill with tears. "I know, sweetheart. Daddy made mistakes. But I'm here now." "Are you going to leave again?" "No, never again." Lily stepped out from behind her grandmother and moved closer to Edward. "You look just like in the pictures," she said, touching his face with her small hands. "And you look just like your mum when she was little. Grandma said Mummy was pretty. She was very pretty. And so are you." Lily smiled shyly. "Do you want to see my drawings?" "I'd love to." She ran to her room and came back with a stack of papers, showing each drawing to Edward and explaining what she'd made. "This one is our family," she said, holding up the same drawing she'd given Richard. "Grandma, me, and my daddy. And this one?" Edward asked, pointing to another. "That's our house. When you come back, we'll live in a big house with a garden." Edward glanced at Margaret. "Lily, Daddy's going to live here in the US now, but we'll have to talk about where you'll stay. Can I live with you and Grandma?" "Of course you can, sweetheart. We'll find a way for all of us to be together." Richard, who had been watching silently, felt his heart warm. Seeing Edward with his daughter brought back memories of when he himself was a young father. "Lily," Richard said, "how about we go out to dinner to celebrate our family being together again? Can I pick the place?" "You can." "I want to go to Happy Burger," she said excitedly. Edward laughed. "Happy Burger is perfect." At Happy Burger, Lily sat between her father and grandfather, beaming with happiness. She told Edward about school, about her friends, about her special heart. "Daddy, do you have a special heart too?" "No, sweetheart." "Why do you ask?" "Because the doctor said these things sometimes pass from father to child." Edward looked at Margaret. "Did Lily inherit this from me?" "Doctors say there might be a genetic component," Margaret explained, "but it's no one's fault." "And will she be okay?" "With the right treatment, yes. She might need surgery in the future, but it won't affect her quality of life." "What about the cost of the treatment?" "Grandpa will pay," Lily said innocently. "He's very rich." Edward looked at his father. "Dad, I can't let you—" "Edward, this isn't up for debate. Lily is my granddaughter. I'll take care of everything she needs. But I'm her father too. I need to take responsibility. And you will, but for now let me help you get settled." After dinner, they returned to Margaret's apartment. Lily was tired but didn't want Edward to leave. "Daddy, will you come back tomorrow?" "I will, sweetheart. Every day." "Promise?" "I promise." Edward kissed his daughter's forehead and hugged her tightly. "Daddy loves you so much, Lily. Never forget that." "I love you too, Daddy." When Edward and Richard left the apartment, both were emotional. "Dad, she's amazing," Edward said. "Smart, loving, brave." "Just like her mother," Margaret said, appearing on the balcony. "Amanda would be so happy seeing the two of you together." "Margaret," Edward said, looking up, "I'm sorry for everything. For abandoning Amanda, for abandoning Lily, for leaving you to handle it all alone." "What matters is that you're here now," she replied. "That's all Amanda wanted." In the car on the way home, Edward asked, "Dad, what happens now?" "Now we build a family, Edward. We'll learn how to be father, grandfather, and granddaughter together." "What about Margaret?" "Margaret is Lily's grandmother. She's part of the family now." "But how will we make this work practically?" "First, we'll settle the legal adoption issue. Then, we'll find a home where everyone can live close to each other. And you'll need a job here in the United States." "Dad, can I work at the company?" "You can, but you'll start at the bottom, like any other employee. I want you to really learn the business." "Okay, I'll take anything." In the following days, the family's routine changed completely. Edward spent mornings with Lily, took her to school, had lunch with her and Margaret. Richard joined them in the evenings. Lily blossomed with the attention of all three adults. She laughed more, played more, and even her heart condition seemed to stabilize. A week after Edward's arrival, Richard's lawyers managed to permanently halt the adoption process. The family from Washington, D.C. withdrew when they learned the child had been reunited with her biological father. "Margaret," Richard said that afternoon, "I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal, Mr. Anderson?" "I found a house in the Upper East Side, 5 minutes from mine. 3 bedrooms, a garden, close to good schools, and the hospital where Lily gets treatment." "Mr. Anderson, I can't afford—" "You don't have to pay. The house will be yours. I want to give it to you and Lily as a gift." Margaret began to cry. "Mr. Anderson, this is too much. I can't accept." "You can and you will. It's my way of thanking you for taking care of my granddaughter all these years." "What about Edward?" "Edward will stay with me for now. He needs to learn how to be a father gradually. And you need space to adjust to this new reality. And after, Later, when we're all comfortable with the situation, we'll see if we want to live together or keep separate homes. What matters is that Lily has the family she always dreamed of. The following week, they went to visit the house. Lily was delighted with the garden and the room that would be hers alone. "Grandma, is this where we're going to live?" "Yes, sweetheart." "And will Daddy and Grandpa Richard visit often?" "Always," Edward confirmed, "and you'll visit us too." "Will I have two homes?" "You'll have a big family," Richard said, "just like you always wanted." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 months later, the new routine was established. Lily attended a private school near home, had regular medical checkups and was much healthier. Edward worked at his father's company and was learning the business quickly. Margaret continued working as Richard's secretary, but now with a much better salary and the peace of mind knowing her granddaughter was well cared for. One afternoon, Edward came home early and found Lily doing homework at the kitchen table. "Hi, Daddy," she greeted cheerfully. "Hi, sweetheart. How was school today?" "Good. The teacher said I'm the best in math in the whole class. Just like Daddy when he was little." "Was Grandpa Richard good at math too?" "Yes. Math is a family tradition." Lily smiled and went back to her homework. Edward watched his daughter for a few minutes, still amazed at how smart and mature she was for her age. "Daddy," Lily said without looking up from her notebook, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Why did it take you so long to come back?" Edward felt a tightness in his chest. It was a question he knew would come sooner or later. "Daddy was scared, Lily." "Scared of what?" "Scared I wouldn't be a good father to you. Scared you wouldn't like me. But I always wanted to meet you." "I know. And Daddy regrets waiting so long." Lily stopped writing and looked at him. "Mommy talked about you sometimes," she said. "Grandma told stories about how much you liked each other. I really liked your mom, sweetheart, and she liked me too." "Why didn't you stay together?" Edward sighed. How do you explain the complexities of adult relationships to a 7-year-old? "Sometimes people like each other but can't stay together because of other complications," he finally said. "What kind of complications?" "Daddy was very young and afraid of responsibilities, made the wrong choices. And now? Now Daddy's grown up, learned that family is the most important thing in the world." Lily got up from her chair and hugged her father. "I'm glad you learned that, Daddy." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." That evening, Edward had dinner at Margaret and Lily's house, as he did 3 times a week. Richard was also there, as usual, on Thursdays. "How's work, Edward?" Richard asked. "Good, Dad. Tough, but I'm learning a lot." "He's doing really well," Richard told Margaret. "The other executives are impressed by his dedication." "That's wonderful," Margaret said. "Amanda would be proud." "Tell me more about Amanda," Edward asked. "I want to know how she was after I left." Margaret stopped eating and looked at Lily, who was playing on the living room floor. "Amanda was a fighter," she finally said. "Even pregnant, even alone, she never lost hope. Said you'd come back one day. And I didn't. But you came back now, and that's what matters." "What was she like as a mother?" "Amazing. Even weak from the illness, she sang to Lily, told her stories, made plans for the future. She wanted to teach her daughter everything." "What kinds of things?" "Reading, writing, being independent. Amanda used to say Lily would grow up to be a strong woman, capable of achieving anything she wanted." Edward looked at his daughter, who was putting together a puzzle on the floor. "She was right," he said. "Lily is exactly how Amanda wanted her to be." After dinner, while Margaret gave Lily a bath, Edward and Richard talked on the porch. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," Edward said. "What is it?" "I'm thinking about asking for joint custody of Lily." Richard turned to look at his son. "What do you mean?" "I want her to spend half the week with me, not here at Margaret's house, but at ours." "Edward, Lily is used to living with Margaret. They've had a routine for 7 years." "I know, but I'm her father. I want to take responsibility for raising her too. And Margaret. How does she feel about this? I haven't talked to her yet. I wanted your opinion first. Richard was thoughtful for a few minutes. Edward, do you think you're ready to care for a child with heart problems 5 days a week? I'll learn, Dad. Margaret can teach me everything. What if Lily doesn't want to? Then I won't push, but I at least want to ask. Talk to Margaret first. See how she reacts to the idea. The next day, Edward arrived early at Margaret's house. Lily was still at school. Margaret, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it, Edward? Did something happen? No, nothing's wrong. It's about Lily. Margaret sat in the armchair, her expression worried. I'm thinking about asking for joint custody, Edward said directly. Margaret paled. What does that mean? It means she'd spend half the week with me and half with you. Edward, Lily has never slept away from me. She has medications she needs to take at specific times. She has regular doctor's appointments. She has a routine that... I can learn all of that, Margaret. I'm her father. I know you're her father, but she's been used to me for 7 years. And she needs to get used to me too. I can't just be a visitor in my daughter's life. Margaret stood and began pacing the room. Edward, you've been here for 2 months. Lily just got used to the idea of having a father around. Don't you think this is moving too fast? Maybe, but I don't want to miss any more of her life. What if she doesn't adjust? What if the change in routine stresses her? The doctor said stress could affect her heart. Edward hadn't considered that possibility. Margaret, I don't want to hurt Lily. I just want to be a real father to her. You already are. You come here every day, take her to school, have lunch with her. But it's not the same. I want to be part of her nighttime routine. I want to be there when she wakes up scared in the middle of the night. I want to take care of her when she's sick. Margaret sat back down, her eyes watery. Edward, promise me one thing. What? If we try joint custody, we'll do it gradually. First, she spends 1 night a week with you, then 2. We only increase it if she's comfortable. Okay, but do you promise you won't try to stop me from having more time with her? I promise. But do you promise you won't push me away from Lily? Margaret, you raised my daughter when I wasn't here. You're the most important person in her life after me. I would never try to take her away from you. When Lily got home from school, they talked to her about the possibility of spending some nights at Grandpa Richard's house with her father. Can I bring my toys? Was her first question. You can bring whatever you want, Edward answered. And can Grandma visit? Of course she can. What if I miss her at night? We'll call her right away, Margaret said. Okay then, Lily said excitedly. When do we start? How about next Saturday? Edward suggested. You sleep there Saturday and come back Sunday afternoon. Cool. I'll pack my little bag. Edward and Margaret exchanged glances. Lily had accepted the idea much more easily than they expected. On Saturday, Edward arrived to pick up Lily with a small suitcase. Margaret had prepared everything. Medications with scheduled times, emergency phone numbers, detailed instructions about the girl's routine. Grandma, don't be sad, okay? Lily said, hugging Margaret. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm happy you'll spend some time with Daddy. What if I miss you? Call me. Anytime. At Richard's house, Lily was delighted with the room he had prepared for her. It had a new bed, several dolls, books, and even a small computer for her to learn about technology. Grandpa, is all this mine? It's yours, sweetheart, for when you come to sleep here. Can I come more often? Whenever you want. That night, Edward read stories to Lily until she fell asleep. Then he sat in the armchair in her room, just watching his daughter sleep. Richard appeared at the bedroom door. How are you feeling? He asked softly. Fulfilled, Edward replied. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. She's a special girl, just like her mother. Do you miss Amanda? Edward was thoughtful for a few minutes. I do, Dad. I miss her so much. Not just because she's gone, but because I wasn't the man she deserved when she was alive. You were young, Edward. That's no excuse. Amanda was pregnant and scared, and I abandoned her. There's no justification for that. But you learned from your mistake, and you're raising your daughter now. I'm trying. Every day I wake up thinking about how I can be a better father to her. And you're succeeding. Lily is thriving with you around. On Sunday morning, Lily woke up early and ran to Edward's room. "Daddy, can we make breakfast together?" "Of course, sweetheart. What do you want to eat?" "Pancakes. Grandma Margaret makes the best pancakes on Sundays." Edward laughed. "I'll try to make them just like Grandma's." In the kitchen, Lily helped Edward prepare the pancakes. She mixed the ingredients while he handled the pan. "Daddy, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, sweetheart. I prayed every night for you to come back." Edward stopped stirring the batter. "You really did?" "Yes. I asked God to send you back to take care of me and Grandma. And how did you feel when I didn't come?" "I was sad. But Grandma said you'd come back when the time was right." "Grandma was right. Daddy, will you ever leave again?" Edward knelt in front of his daughter and held her small hands. "Never again, Lily. Daddy is here to stay now." "Promise?" "I promise. Nothing in the world will take me away from you again." When Margaret arrived to pick up Lily on Sunday afternoon, she found the girl beaming. "Grandma!" she shouted, running to hug her. "Daddy made pancakes and taught me how to play video games." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Did you have fun?" "So much. Can I sleep here again?" Margaret looked at Edward, who was smiling. "Of course you can, sweetheart. Whenever you want." "How about Wednesday?" Edward suggested. "Yes," Lily said excitedly. In the following months, the shared custody worked better than anyone had imagined. Lily adapted perfectly to splitting her week between each grandparent and her father. Edward learned to manage Lily's medications, take her to doctor's appointments, and handle the moments when she felt more tired because of her heart. Richard became the grandfather Lily had always dreamed of. He took her out on weekends, helped her with homework, and even learned to braid her hair. Margaret, in turn, had time to take better care of herself. She started taking an English course, updated her wardrobe, and even began dating a kind widower she met at Lily's school. 6 months after Edward's return, the family received important news. Dr. Harold Thompson, Lily's cardiologist, requested an urgent appointment. "What could have happened?" Edward asked Richard on their way to the hospital. "I don't know, but we'll face it together, whatever it is." In the office, Dr. Harold was smiling. "I have good news about Lily," he said. "What kind of good news?" Margaret asked anxiously. "The latest tests show significant improvement in her heart condition. The small hole is closing naturally." "What does that mean?" Edward asked. "It means she might not need surgery. If the improvement continues at this rate, she could be completely healed within a year." Margaret began to cry with relief. Edward hugged his daughter, who didn't fully understand what was happening but sensed it was something good. "Doctor, what caused this improvement?" Richard asked. "It could be several factors. Emotional stability, less stress, regular exercise, better diet. When a child feels loved and secure, it positively impacts every aspect of their health." "So our family helped her heart?" Lily asked innocently. "You helped a great deal, sweetheart," Dr. Harold replied. "Your family was the best medicine you could have had." When they left the hospital, Edward suggested a celebration. "How about we all have dinner together tonight? My treat." "Where?" Lily asked. "Wherever you want, sweetheart." "The pizza place, the one with the playground." "Pizza sounds perfect." At the pizzeria, while Lily played in the playground with other kids, the 3 adults talked about how life had changed for the better. "Margaret," Richard said, "I need to thank you for everything you've done." "Mr. Anderson, there's no need. I'm the one who should thank you for giving me the opportunity to work for you all these years. You could have told me about Lily from the start." "Why did you wait so long?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing my job, afraid you wouldn't believe me, afraid you'd try to take Lily away from me. And now, are you still afraid?" "No. Now I know we're a real family, that we'll always take care of each other." Edward raised his soda glass. "A toast to our crazy but perfect family." "To our family," Margaret repeated. "To our family," Richard confirmed. Lily came running back from the playground. "What are you talking about?" "We're toasting to our family," Edward explained. "Can I toast too?" "Of course." Lily grabbed her juice glass and raised it with the adults. "To our family," she shouted, making everyone in the pizzeria look their way. They all laughed and toasted together. That night, as Edward was putting Lily to bed, she asked a question that surprised him. "Daddy, are you happy now?" "Very happy, sweetheart." "Why?" "Because at first you seemed sad, like in the old pictures Grandma has." "Daddy was sad. I missed you without even knowing it. And now Daddy is the happiest man in the world. Is Grandpa Richard happy too?" "He is. He always wanted a granddaughter to spoil." "And Grandma Margaret?" "Grandma is happy because she doesn't have to take care of you alone anymore. So everyone's happy." "Everyone, sweetheart." Lily smiled and snuggled into her pillow. "Daddy, can I tell you another secret?" "Go ahead." "I knew you'd come back." "How did you know?" "Because Mommy talked to me sometimes." Edward felt a chill down his spine. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "In my dreams. She said you'd come back when I needed you most." "And when was that?" "When Grandma was really worried about the adoption papers. I saw her crying in secret." Edward hugged his daughter tightly. "Mom was right. Dad came back at just the right time." "Do you think she's happy up in heaven?" "I'm sure she is, sweetheart. Mom always wanted you to have a complete family. Now I do. I have Dad, Grandpa, and Grandma Margaret, and we all love you very much." "I love you too. Good night, Dad." "Good night, my princess." A year later, at Lily's 8th birthday party, Dr. Harold Thompson shared the news everyone had been waiting for. The ventricular septal defect had closed completely. Lily was officially cured. The party was held at the new house Edward had bought in the same neighborhood where Margaret and Lily had lived. It was big enough for the whole family to stay together on weekends, but still allowed everyone to maintain their independence. "Dad," Edward said to Richard as they watched Lily playing with her school friends, "thank you for making me come back." "I didn't make you. I just showed you what you already knew in your heart." "What if I hadn't come back?" "I don't like to think about that. I would have missed the best years of my life." "You still have plenty of time to make up for what was lost." "Dad, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you regret anything about how you raised me?" Richard thought for a few minutes. "I regret working so much, missing important moments of your childhood, not creating an environment where you felt comfortable sharing your problems with me. And now? Now I'm trying to be the grandfather I couldn't be as a father. You're succeeding. Lily adores you. And I adore her. She taught me that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up." Margaret approached the two. "What are you two talking about over here?" "About how lucky we are," Edward answered. "Lucky how?" "To get a second chance at being a family," Richard explained. "Third chance," Margaret corrected. "Amanda and you had the first. You two and Lily had the second. Now the four of us have the third." "And it'll be the last one," Edward said, "because now we know the value of what we have." Lily came running toward them. "Grandma, Dad, Grandpa, come see the cake. It's beautiful." The cake was a work of art, 3 tiers decorated with sugar flowers and a little figurine on top that looked just like Lily. "Who made this cake?" Edward asked. "I ordered it," Richard said. "I thought our princess deserved something special." "Can I cut it now?" Lily asked eagerly. "You can, sweetheart, but first how about a little speech?" "I want to make one," she said excitedly. Lily climbed onto a chair to be at the adult's height. "Everyone," she shouted to get the guests' attention, "I want to say thank you." The whole party quieted to listen. "Thank you, Grandma Margaret, for always taking care of me. Thank you, Grandpa Richard, for buying me a new heart. And thank you, Dad, for coming home." Not a single dry eye remained in the room. "And thank you, Mom, up in heaven, for sending Dad back when I needed him most." Edward picked his daughter up in his arms. "And Dad wants to thank you for being the most special girl in the world. And for learning that family matters more than anything else," Richard added. "And for discovering that love can heal anything," Margaret finished. Lily smiled and kissed each of the adults. "Now can I cut the cake?" "Now you can," they all answered together. As Lily cut the cake with the help of the 3 adults, Edward looked around and saw a room full of happy people. Lily's school friends, co-workers, neighbors, Margaret's new girlfriend. It was exactly the kind of life Amanda would have dreamed of for her daughter, full of love, laughter, and people who truly cared. That night, after all the guests had left and Lily was already asleep, Edward, Richard, and Margaret sat on the porch of the house. "Margaret," Edward said, "I need to apologize to you once again." "Edward, you've already apologized 1,000 times. But it's not enough. You raised my daughter alone for 7 years, worked every day to support her, took care of her when she was sick, and I wasn't here to help. You're here now, that's what matters." "And Dad," Edward continued, looking at Richard, "thank you for showing me it's never too late to do the right thing." "Thank you for giving me a second chance to be a good father," Richard replied. "So now," Margaret asked, "what's the next step for our family?" "Now we live," Edward said. "We'll cherish every day, every moment with Lily. We'll keep learning how to be a family. And we'll give her all the love she deserves," Richard added. "Every bit of love she deserves and then some. She'll grow up knowing she's deeply loved," Margaret said, "that she has 3 adults willing to do anything for her. And when she grows up and has children of her own, she'll know how to build a real family." Edward finished. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the stars in the New York sky. "Do you think Amanda would approve of how things turned out?" Edward finally asked. "I'm sure she would," Margaret answered. "Amanda always said Lily deserved a complete family. Now she has one." "And do you think Lily will remember all this when she grows up?" "She'll remember the love," Richard said. "She'll remember feeling safe and cared for, that's what matters. And she'll remember that even when families fall apart, they can always come back together," Margaret added. "If there's love and a willingness to forgive," Edward finished. That night, each went to their own home with a full heart. Edward slept in the room next to Lily's, Richard returned to his mansion in the Upper East Side, and Margaret settled into her new house. But they all knew that no matter where they slept, they were a family that had been lost and found again, a family that had learned love is stronger than fear, forgiveness more powerful than pride, and that it's never too late to do the right thing. And Lily, sleeping peacefully in her room, dreamed of rainbows and unicorns, knowing that when she woke up, 3 people who loved her unconditionally would be waiting for her. The end. So, what did you think of this story about family, forgiveness, and second chances? Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and whether you believe Edward made the right choice coming back to the United States. Do you have a similar story in your family? Share your heartfelt thoughts about how this narrative touched you. Leave a like if the story moved you. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that go straight to the heart.